is that justice must be given and must be seen to be taken place and be done.
Yes.
But then again, if you look at the opposition, as previously was constituted Azimio, the court itself ruled that Azimio was the majority in the House.
Yes.
But we're looking at members of parliament who, before the fact, allowed themselves to cross and work with government, you know, goes to speak in terms of the electorate, who those who've been elected, given an opportunity to represent, not knowing exactly what they ought to be doing in the House, because one would say, he who pays the piper calls the tune, you know. But that notwithstanding as well, if you look at the post-election agreement between ODM, broad-based arrangement, that was after the Gen Z protest, and many asked the question, even after that, have we achieved anything? Because in 2025, again, Kenyans were killed on the streets during the anniversary of the same. So with these then, would Kenyans be right to say there exists a leadership that does not care about Mwananchi?
That is correct, and on this, we have let Kenyans down, and we have fallen short of the glory of God. And I think time has come when we must start putting accountability and justice above everything else. Because monies can be allocated in the next budget, families can be paid, but as long as those rogue officers are still there, they are still misusing those firearms, they'll still kill. And like you asked, nothing has changed. The conditions that led to the young people are still there, because we still have the same bottom-up government in place. Everything is going from the bottom up. Everything from fuel. Now, if you look at electricity, even water, rent, school, everything is going bottom up. So we are saying that something needs to be done to hold to account these officers. And we, as the incoming or the alternative government, we're saying one thing we're going to ensure is that the cover-up that has been there is just a matter of a few months to go. If we take over government, Eugene Wamalwa is president tomorrow. I think the number one thing would be to ensure justice for these families. And the beauty of our law is that unlike in civil suits, you know, the limitation, the statute of limitation does not apply to crimes. So as long as there is evidence, and we saw these officers, if you look at the photograph at about between 3 and 4 p.m., those officers were on their knees and aimed. The videos are there, the photographs are there, but they are being protected by the state.
But Eugene, one would equally ask the question, you form government and there is justice that has to be given.
Yes.
Everybody must be seen, justice to be applied to them.
Yes.
We have some of your members as well who've been accused of committing the same crimes. Fred Matiang'i, there are calls for him to give answers on what happened to Rivayala.
And I think
at the time when you were under the Sufuria movement, we saw it was the then Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua, who woke up at 5 a.m., went to office and said, the president is not here, I'm the one who's in charge. So when you talk about justice being offered, it must be seen to be delivered across board. There are no sacred cows.
And it will be. And there's no collective responsibility in crime. A crime is committed by an individual, and that individual must be identified. And where there's evidence, it matters not how long it's going to take. This regime will go out of, and this is what I want to advise those in uniform, that you might be protected today by William Ruto, but the incoming government will not protect you. You shall be taken to court. You shall be held to account individually. That responsibility is not a shared responsibility. And this is going to happen. Some of the reforms we want to put in place, because the families are also saying there must be remedial measures put in place in terms of policies and the reforms to ensure this does not happen. Some of the things we want to say as we take over government, they are very practical changes that we can make to hold that officer personally responsible. If we have body cams for all the officers, so that whatever you are doing once you're in uniform, you are able to monitor your movements. And whatever you do, whether it is taking a bribe you can't be traced. That will kill the issue of corruption in the police force. And it's mandatory because you cannot take it off.
Yeah.
It will be an offense. So these are some of the reforms we can put in place. And also the movement of firearms. Using technology, you know that those technologies that can be put on arms so that there's traceability of arms from the armory to the officer. It's called the RDI. And that arm is traced to the place where it was deployed until that time when it is returned back to the armory. In terms of the ammunition used, so all we need to do is enhance some of these checks and use technology to hold that officer responsible in terms of his movement and the movement of the arms, and the misuse of arms would be something. What are these people telling us? That we could only find enough evidence for 3 cases. If we have 62 killed and you're only prosecuting 3, what does that mean? The rest are off the hook. So it means these officers would still say, okay, the chance of me being prosecuted, even if I do this, is like 1.5%. So, but if we increase that weight of responsibility on an individual officer, you see changes in our police, in the manner they handle those firearms, in the manner they handle the citizens, because we had a police force. Under the new constitution, we're supposed to have a police service that must act in the highest form of professionalism and with respect to human rights. That is in the law, the National Police Service Act. It is in our constitution. But these officers do not care about human rights. And the government itself, because it's protecting the same officers, do not care about human rights and the rule of law. So our pledge to Kenyans is that we must return this country back to the path of the rule of law and constitutionalism. And to do that, we must have a president and administration that actually believes in constitutionalism and the rule of law. That is totally lacking. And this is one thing that we want to assure Kenyans, that given that opportunity with Wamalwa as president, that will be my number one priority, to ensure justice to